Hello friends, it is Karuna once again at Maple, and it's a pretty nice day outside, very nice. It's very sunny with bright blue skies and not a cloud in sight. Can't really see because I'm in the woods, but I thought this would be a great opportunity to go for a walk, and why not make another video. This time about a very important topic, namely the colonization of wisdom traditions. Not just Buddhism, but you've also got yoga and Native American traditions. And there are many, many more examples, but I'm mainly going to be talking about the mentality, the colonialist mentality or mind that is responsible for, and that has been the root cause of this problem of colonialism, this colonization well, in this case, it's the colonization of wisdom traditions. And so, I think it's really important to understand this mentality or mind. So, my understanding is that the root is, well, mainly these three poisons that are talked about in Buddhism: greed, hate, and ignorance. Now, how do these three poisons play out? This we have to understand, and it's very important to understand this. It seems like mainly the West has been the main part of the world that's responsible for colonizing these wisdom traditions. And I would say it's mainly because there is a sense of accumulation. The American dream is all about accumulation and profit and having possession of property and money. And whereas in Buddhism is the opposite. It's all about relinquishing. And this sense or this mind of accumulation is mainly like the greed part of the problem with regard to colonialism. Always wanting more knowledge, always wanting more power or whatever it is. You know, what comes to mind right now is the tree of knowledge, like in Christianity. I'm not sure if that's an appropriate analogy, but it seems like science has mainly been the tree of knowledge for many of us, just wanting to know more and more and more, endlessly. I mean, it doesn't stop. It can't stop, because that's what science is all about. It's mainly just about knowledge and extraction and wanting power, and even when it claims to be interested in understanding or appreciating these wisdom traditions, it still can't help but colonize them, fail to understand them. It's like there's this living mystery that is meant to be left alone, but instead of appreciating and respecting the mystery, it just wants to turn the mystery into something that can be grasped. You know, in Buddhism, we refer to this as conceptual grasping, or prapancha. That's another term that's used. And in terms of economics and money, you know, we can't help but see a tree, a living sacred tree, as just something that we can manipulate. You know, the whole system, it seems like, is designed to just manipulate nature for to our own ends. It's like we fail to see this living mystery, the sacred, and we convert it into something like money or data. And this is what, if you ever heard of dataism, that's what dataism is doing. That's the greed part of it. Now, how is this hate? Well, if you're taking something and using it toward your own ends without fully understanding it or appreciating it, then it's almost like saying, I see you as money, or if you're referring to the trees or nature as just money to be bought or owned or whatever toward your own ends, then you're choosing to see it according to your own perception, your own, what your religion or whatever you want to call it is all about, rather than seeing it for what it is. And it's like saying, may you not exist as you are. I want to use you. I want to manipulate you to my own ends. And that is an act of hate. This may you not exist way of, dealing with the sacred is an act of hate and has caused a lot of destruction. And this is delusion, because you fail to see what is sacred as sacred. You are failing to truly do what these teachings are pointing to, namely giving yourself to something greater than yourself, or you can also say ego dissolution. And this is what yoga in the West has failed at. Yoga in the West is now thought of as physical exercise. People think that's all yoga is, but they don't realize it's way more than just physical exercise. And in fact, there are these 8 limbs of yoga that were laid out by this yogi named Patanjali, if that's how you pronounce his name. And these 8 limbs, only one of those limbs is asana, which is sitting posture. And it's not even doing physical poses like acrobatics or for physical exercise. What it really means is sitting posture like full lotus. The whole goal of this limb, asana, is to prepare you to enter into this state of meditation. And the goal of that is to realize this oneness with the divine, with God, or however it's phrased in the 8 limbs of yoga, the text by Patanjali. Well, Buddhism, so many people in the West seem to think that Buddhism is all about meditation. Or maybe they don't think it's all about meditation. Maybe they know that there's also Shila, or virtue, and maybe they even know about absolute truth, like this view of emptiness, but then they might misinterpret emptiness to mean doesn't exist. And that's simply not the case. What is true, though, is that emptiness does not mean existence, but what also needs to be understood is that it doesn't mean non-existence either. And many people seem to think that absolute truth is separate from relative truth. Or maybe they think that it negates relative truth. Like, I've had a couple people ask me personally, if everything is empty, if everyone is empty, then what's the point of compassion? Who is there to save? Or people also might think, if we're all empty, then it doesn't seem like it would really matter whether or not I killed someone. I mean, I can just stab someone and there's no one there because that person is empty. In the scientific materialist view is more or less that we're just atoms bumping into one another and that there's nothing there. And this is the same, or at least similar kind of view, that if we're all just atoms bumping into one another, or if we're just empty, then everything is meaningless. There's no one there. There's literally no one there. And this is a common misconception of Buddhism. Buddhism is not nihilistic, and it's also not pessimistic. Some people say that the Buddha just talked about suffering. That's really pessimistic. Suffering, suffering, suffering. All of it is just suffering. That's all the Buddha ever talked about. But what about the third and fourth noble truths? These third and fourth noble truths are pointing towards the end of suffering. There is in fact an end of suffering. It's like, wow. It's one thing to acknowledge that there's suffering, but to completely forget about or not believe in the fact that there is an end of suffering, now that is pessimistic. But to finally discover, like, oh wow, there's actually an end of suffering, and there's a way leading to the end of suffering, I'll take it. This is the end of my suffering. This is optimistic. And this is how Buddhism has been colonized, because people misinterpret it. And they think, oh, we can just use Buddhism to cause further destruction. And of course, Native American tradition has also been colonized. And there are certain things about Native American tradition that are just not talked about because, for this very reason, they have been colonized. It's so important to understand because, we even see this here at Maple. People come to Maple, some people, not everyone, but some people do come to Maple with this very mind that just wants to extract, that wants to have pleasant experiences, because having those pleasant experiences just makes them want more and more and more of those experiences. It's this mind of accumulation that just wants to abuse the teaching of relinquishment. This is the most important part of Buddhism that counteracts this colonialist mind of accumulation. Greed, which is also hate, and it's also delusion to see the sacred as something that you can just take for yourself. You're not really seeing it. You're not really understanding it. You're not understanding that it should be about surrendering to something greater than yourself, and this other part of it, which is ego dissolution. And this ego dissolution is the thing, and this relinquishment is the thing that leads to true happiness. It's no longer about pleasure, this kind of base pleasure that's not real happiness. So, this might sound very intimidating to just give yourself to this tradition. But it's the thing that's going to lead to greater happiness all around for yourself and for others.